Greetings men, greetings women. Quick thank you to people who've been subscribing to me. I know I've only got about 34 subscribers right now, but it's a start. Some people have a lot less and have been on a lot longer than I have. So thank you for those folks who are subscribing and tuning into the videos. It's much appreciated. Like the acorn, all things start slow, and before long the trees started sapling, and before long it could be an oak tree, who knows, we'll see. I'm going to do these every week, as well as my other videos that I put out as well on top of it. But I'm going to be doing weekly news updates about what's been going on in the world, especially pertaining to what it means for Europeans, for Western civilization, and maybe some big events elsewhere, commenting on those. So this past week, I think we just caught the big Hillary speech, where she basically went after anyone who's remotely a nationalist. And other news was Microsoft is now going after anybody who is politically incorrect, basically. And there's a third piece of news that was relevant, but I can't think of it right now. I'll probably cover that in another video. So I'll go over, first of all, the big piece of news was Hillary's speech. Did anyone watch Hillary's speech? I'm sure most of you folks did. It was like a big speech that she gave concerning the alt-right. And now, to anybody who needs any clarification, the alt-right is basically anyone who isn't a conservative conforming to the mainstream viewpoint of conservatism. Alt-right, nationalism is covered by the alt-right. I know some people debate this and they say, no, white nationalism, European nationalists, National Socialism, all this is not really the alt-right. Guys, it kind of is the alt-right. The alt-right does overlap slightly, not much, but it does overlap slightly. This is one of the reasons why the Hildebeest and all our cronies have used it as an excuse to try and go after anyone who's remotely on that. And the reason she's doing this is because once somebody is alt-right, they start to move, they start to gravitate to being more ethnocentric. They start to be wanting more control over their own nation, people's destiny. And this is why she's done it. During this speech, I noticed she was throwing out the R word like it was going out of fashion. She was mentioning the supremacist word, going after anyone that had any remote link to KKK folks, or anybody else who was politically incorrect and not fitting into the Overton window. And the Overton window basically means anybody who's mainstream, fitting into the comfortable, politically correct mainstream. That's what the Overton window is, although that is moving to the right, thankfully, in our favour, which is much needed given the troubles that we're facing right now. So the Hildebeest was given this speech, and I noticed in this speech she was doing the classic liberal trick of, I'm giving you one side of the story, which is my side of the story, and it's the right side of the story, and you'd better believe it, sort of thing, when in fact she really is just using it as an excuse to demonise nationalists. Now, what she also seems to like to try and throw out is this word supremacist. Guys, I mean, there's no such thing as a white supremacist. It's an invented term. It's like racist. It's an invented term. The supremacist word is being used as a way to basically scare anyone who is remotely thinking about being a nationalist or ethnocentric or wanting to put their own people first instead of pandering to every other people. And that is who it's being aimed at. When they use this term, white supremacist, it's a scare word. It's probably more scary to these people who are mainstream people and leaning towards us than the racist word, because the racist word is starting to lose traction. I will say that. So there is some ground being gained towards common sense and recognizing that, like I say in my other previous video, racist is a made-up word, and I'm using this openly in conversation now. Whenever anyone says, "Oh, well, that's racist," I'm like, "Well, racist is a bloody made-up word," and I've said that to a few people. But white supremacist, this is being used as a way of stopping people being a nationalist. Okay, they seem to think that the word white supremacist means anybody who is a white nationalist who wants their own country to look after its own and basically pursue excellence. That's what it basically is attacking people for. You know, it's like us turning around and saying every time China goes after these little islands in the South China Sea that's in the territory of the Philippines, and they start doing their shenanigans there, dumping soil on it and putting troops on there, you don't hear all of a sudden in the media or from these talking heads, oh, the Chinese supremacists are at it again. Asian supremacy in the South China Sea. Shock, horror. You don't hear this. Why don't you hear it? Because they don't go after Asians, they go after white people, because they don't like white people. They don't want white people who are looking after their own people. You know, we start to look after ourselves, we start to look after the nation, we start to look after the companies, the companies, the industries, the economy, and so much more. So this is what Hillary Clinton's speech was basically trying to do. How successful was Hillary Clinton's speech? There was a good backlash from folks in the alt-right, of course, and of course nationalist circles as a whole. Left-wing media sort of went a bit drooling over it, as you expect them to do so. But Donald Trump's counter-attack has been equally great, of a greater ferocity. In fact, I'd say that her speech against the alt-right has done more to draw people to the alt-right, because they're beginning to see through even that false demagoguery that Hillary Clinton's making out. Now, Trump has basically reiterated his stance on immigration, which is a good thing, because I was thinking he was slacking it off a bit, and it's good to see he's going in there full guns blazing. However, in the other news that I'll cover right now, it's this latest thing by Microsoft. Now, you got to remember, when you see the headline, Microsoft clamps down on hate speech, as it calls hate speech, which basically, in my eyes, is mostly an anti-white statement. Okay, that's what it boils down to. It's an anti-white statement. And Microsoft, you've got to remember, Microsoft doesn't just cover Microsoft forums, which I instantly thought of straight away. I read into it a bit more, and sure enough, Skype's covered by it. And anything else that Microsoft owns and is on the whole Rubicon of the internet data and social media and all this is covered by this. So that means, guys, anybody who is talking openly and is using racialist terms and even the most mildest racial descriptions, anything covering nationalist, ethnocentric view, which they will automatically consider racist, the made-up word there again, is going to be under fire. So you're going to have to be basically minding your P's and your Q's and be careful using Skype now. I used to always use Skype, and I used to always recommend Skype because it was free and it was a good way of communicating with people, and it was encrypted, it was private, even that's compromised. And now on top of that, with Microsoft coming out with its anti-white statement, on top of all its other anti-white statements, what it boils down to is, if the people who read it are offended, they will try and argue that you have breached these guidelines, these rules that are covering like discrimination against any other race, hate against any other race. Let me tell you something, guys. When it comes down to this, it doesn't have to be anything close to that. It can be very, very remote and abstract things that they go after, because it's all about shutting down free speech. That's what they want to do. They want to basically stop any dialogue. Why do they want to stop any dialogue? Why? Because we're correct. When we start making these comments and these observations that are based on millennia and all this data that we've gathered over the centuries and through our own personal experiences, remember, the truth is offensive. And if the truth is offensive, trust me, they'll work that into how they go after you with the latest thing with Microsoft. And also, if you want to look at it from the bigger picture, Microsoft will be using this as a test case. Because if other companies that are sort of even leaning towards the anti-white slant, which a lot of them do, they'll just follow suit, and all of a sudden, we've got the whole swathe of the internet that is all of a sudden anti-white and is going after people left, right, and centre for what they construe as, racial, as hate speech. It's one of the biggest fallacies going, this whole hate speech thing. So, how to combat this? Well, one great guy has come out with a what's it called? Goy chat. Goy period chat. Capital G, capital C. And this is somewhere where people go who basically it's something that nationalists have come up with to basically communicate and talk without being censored. It's kind of like an underground area. Well, not an underground area, but basically somewhere where you can have a private conversation with other people without it being snooped on. And they're quite good, from what I've seen of the place, to be policing it from any wrongdoers and anybody shit stirring and causing trouble and mischief. And there's about 4 or 5 different mirror sites to it. But Goi.chat, yeah, that's what they called it. Now, I would have probably maybe chosen a different first word, but you know, I don't. It works. Goi chat. It's short and it's sweet, just like Skype is and was. So anyway, that's just a quick news roundup. There's probably loads I've missed, but that's just it for now, guys. The first one. Hopefully there'll be more. And as always, as ever, Europa Infinitus.